So let's say someone, they have a good idea. It's not something that, should be done by someone else or isn't a good concept. Let's say they have a good idea. They've got the business started. They have the plan. They're in their first few months. And I guess especially now, I mean, e-commerce, online shopping, things like that are on the rise. So my question was going to be, how do you like generally what are strategies to get people in the door at a physical location? And I guess the second part to that would be, I mean, has that changed recently given, everything going online?
The question you're sort of asking is a major question that communities all around the United States and really worldwide are kind of wrestling with is what's the future of bricks and mortar
Right.
relative to the internet, relative to online? And depending on who you talk to, you get very different answers. I think there are some industries that have been dramatically, or some occupations and some, segments that have been dramatically impacted by that. But even then, there's been sort of let's take, even then it's sort of variable. Take bookstores, for example. That's a great example.
Yeah.
Prior to the rise of Amazon, pre-Amazon, bookstores, bookstores didn't have online competition. The biggest competitors to bookstores were themselves. There were independent bookstores and there were nationals. And the nationals were beating the hell out of the locals, out of the independents. And a handful of independents were able to, hang on by being specialized and by being community oriented and things like that. But it was really hard. Amazon came along and started out as a bookseller, and obviously became now it sells anything and everything. But it started out as a bookseller, and it dramatically changed that marketplace, beat the crap out of everybody, but particularly the big box stores.
Yeah.
Borders books disappeared. Borders was one of the big box giants, disappeared. And there are a bunch of others as well. But interestingly, the mom and pop, independent bookstores have been making a comeback, even with such a high percentage of books being sold now online, or people not even buying books.
Yeah.
Because it's been sort of niched, and I think these folks have figured out there's been a backlash against, Amazon, and some of the sellers online are not mom and pop stores by any great stretch of the imagination. A lot of people now get that. So, while it doesn't mean that they certainly have a market share and a pretty good one. But it's interesting that independent bookstores have actually have come back on an upward trajectory now. In part because it's an experience type of thing. I know when I went on vacation. I was on a vacation a couple of weeks ago, up in Maine, and we went looking around a lot of these nice seacoast villages, and inevitably we're in a bookstore. Why? It's an experiential thing.
Right.
And
Yeah, it can't be replicated.
yeah, well, yeah. And so I can buy a book online, easy, but can I peruse and browse and read through and look at the covers and see what it looks like? I mean, no, I can't do that. Not very easily at all. If I know what I want, I can go and get it. But but that experience, has certainly been, and so bookstores are a good example of something that's had a rebound. And partly is that it's an experience. Experiential retail is still, is gaining ground and is doing well. And it's a reason why I think a lot of like even during the pandemic, restaurants seem to fare fairly well. These days, restaurants have a different problem. They have the problem of labor and help. They can't get it. And that's been a problem for, that's been part of the curse of a lot of food and beverage places. But it's interesting. I think bricks and mortar has a place in our society, and we're still sorting that out. We're trying to figure out, all right, what's the Met's Main Street going to look like 10 or 20 years from today?
Yeah.
I think it will still be there.
Yeah.
Because people want something at the street level that engages them. They don't want to. I mean, they don't want their people don't want Main Street anywhere to be 50 insurance companies.
Yeah. Right.
That has absolutely no appeal to anybody
Yeah.
in any way, shape, or form. Um, so it's what I think we're sorting that out, and the communities are still working really hard on that now. You're seeing a return to a lot of food and beverage at the expense of sort of, I think, traditional retail. But I think there are some traditional retail that will survive and it will continue to grow because not everybody, but enough people will kind of like it to be able to allow that to happen.
Right.
So part of it is sort of, I think there's this process that people are kind of going through right now. I think each of us do it and communities are doing it, trying to figure out, well, what are they? And what is it?
Right.
And it might be different in each community, depending on what the population is, what they like. Do they have tourists? Do they have visitors? Do they have students? What is it? We know that students, for example, buy heavily online.
Yeah.
Heavily online. So what do they want? What do they like to buy in person?
Right.
The answer is not nothing.
Yeah.
You do like to buy some things in person. The question is what? And and so part of it is that process is happening now. And it's interesting because it's sort of reshaping the retail marketplace. And obviously, places like some of the malls and things really are having, some of those are really suffering because they haven't been able to do that very well.
Yeah.